We continue to explore the development path of Minecraft, and this is the third installment. Today we're going to take a look at the development branch called InDev. It was divided into two parts, although only one full version was released, number 0.31. This is one of the most interesting development branches of the game. Still, before watching it, I recommend watching the first two parts of the Minecraft Retrospective. Believe me, there is a lot to see there. The third phase of development began with Notch hiring a new employee for the first time in his life. Before that, he worked on his own and resorted to help only with advice from fans of the game. The first person to join Mojang was Hayden Scott Barron, aka Doc. Notch announced this event on his blog. He also shared the new logo that Doc drew. Yes, for the most part, Scott acted as a graphic designer rather than a developer. This logo, unfortunately, but I think most fortunately, was never used. In addition to the logo, Doc decided to fundamentally change the look of the mobs and proposed this concept art of the main character. Because Notch was able to write the correct code to implement MD3 models, Doc started creating new mobs. From under his wing came such mobs as Rana, Steve, Black Steve, and of course Peace Boy. I almost forgot to tell you why this branch of updates called InDev. It's short for two words: in development. The first version of the InDev development stage was released on December 23, 2009. Initially, Notch did not want to release any version until they were ready for at least a regular game. The player demanded from Notch to share everything, so those who bought the game for a humble 5 euros could be satisfied with a version that had a lot of bugs. Notch knew about them and asked not to write to him to fix them, as these versions are just designed to fix them. The Rana mob appeared for the first time in this version. All other mobs that Notch added in previous stages of development were not available. Rana had no full animation, she could only jump and move in different directions. Her body remained motionless. She did not react to the player in any way, just wandered aimlessly around the world, appearing somewhere within the player's field of view. She had no health, and when the player tried to hit Rana, the player's hand would pass through her. Slowly, Notch began adding lightning to the game. There were 9 levels in total. The lightning changed depending on the generation of the world. In the caves where the sunlight didn't hit it, it was dark, and the closer the border of the cave was to the sun, the brighter it became. The mobs as well as the player's shadows appeared. It was round, not square. However, as at present. In general, the lightning was still at a rather primitive level. From interesting things, I will note that if you put a block of TNT and then destroy it, the layer underneath it turned into planks, but only those with the same AD number of the block. This was used by Notch to debug the flood. After all, he never figured out what to do with the infinitely created water in the game. Although Notch started to develop survival mode, these versions only had a creative game mode. Although with the help of the modifications, the game mode could be changed. Such a solution allowed the player to open a full inventory. The player's character was Rana. On the right side was literally writing player name. Below, instead of the usual crafting grid, there were characteristics: attack, defense, and speed. The inventory itself had 3 types of armor: iron, chainmail, and leather. There was also spiked armor, but visually it seems to be chainmail armor that was combined with a leather armor, an iron sword and a shovel, the same quiver of arrows, an apple, a stack of TNT, and bookshelves. The sword and shovel were just placeholders. There were no enemies to beat with the sword, and the shovel was just fast as a normal hand. At the same time, the items had no full-fledged model, just a flat texture. Arrows and quiver were there, but there was no way to use them. The arrow firing button just didn't work for some reason. Notch disabled all of this. Because of the lighting mechanic, Notch decided to add a torch as well. By placing it on a block, it would start emitting light. In the inventory, the torch showed up as a block, not an item. It could even be placed on a wall, but visually it started to look stretched out and somehow very thin. As soon as the player destroyed the block to which the torch was attached, it remained hanging in the air. Thus, it was possible to create flame torches. In addition to the lightning, I would like to add that the leaves on the trees also started to create shadows. It was appearing just under the leaves. It wasn't soft, it was still as clumsy, but it was better than nothing. Because Notch was working on the game himself, he couldn't hire a full-fledged sound engineer, so he took free sounds from freesound.org website. The very famous damage sound in the game was taken from this site. This sound was added on November 30th, 2007. The new world types were added: island, the world consisted of the giant island surrounded by water; flying, the world consisted of small flying islands with a void underneath. Water was a limited resource. Flat, this type of world very similar to a super flat world, but trees and flowers were generated. Everything was still surrounded by water. The last one, the original one, is the one that was added in the classic version of the game. 2 world themes also appeared. Normal is essentially the most normal world, The second is hell. Exactly hell, not the nether. In this type of world there is extremely low light from the sun, and all the water has been replaced by lava. Of course, along with this came a fire block. You could set fire to wool, wood, planks, bookshelves and TNT. Because it wasn't quite a standard world, Notch decided to update the lightning. Instead of 9 levels, he added 16. This made the lightning look smoother. In one version, tools were fully added. It was iron axe, pickaxe, shovel, as well as a flint and steel. These were initially just given to the player when creating the world. The tools had no durability, but at the same time, they speed up the blocks mining by 4 times. The axe, due to its texture, was more similar to the labrys, an ancient Greek double-sided ceremonial axe. Later, Notch, though, would replace this texture with the one we know. There was a very interesting bug with the axe. If you start mining wood with it and switch tools several times, then instead of a wood block, multicolored blocks were generated. I don't know how often you play in full screen mode, but it was in this particular branch of development that such a feature was officially added. The very same starter house have also appeared. They were generated automatically along with the world of Minecraft, entirely made of mossy cobblestone. In this house there were several chests at once. Yes, they were also added in this version. In this chest you can find all the existing blocks of Minecraft in the amount of 1 stack, a whole double chest with TNT and a chest with the tools. For the first time a bow was added. It fired instantly. The bowstring did not need to be drawn, and if an arrow passed through the lava, it instantly became a fire arrow. Arrow sound, of course, is still pretty cheesy. But there is nothing you can do about it. It's free sounds, at least it's something. The Notch finally fixed the torches. They were now fully displayed no matter which way you look at them. And they even had a nice burning animation. However, in the inventory they still look too small. TNT in the game slowly began to get its own physics. That is, now TNT understood which blocks can be blown up in large quantities and which in smaller quantities, based on their power. That is, the game has primitive mechanics of the blast resistance of blocks. I will note that for TNT was added animation. Now it flashed a little after activation, and from the top of the block went black smoke. After the explosion of TNT were left beautiful particles of white smoke. In one of the versions of the game, instead of 99 unit stack, Notch decided to add an 100 unit stack. At the same time, if you take it in the inventory, they were unfolded into 2 slots. New items appeared in the tool chest: diamonds, ingots of gold and iron, as well as a coal. Moreover, diamond, wood and stone tools also appeared. Furthermore, they finally have a full 3D model which we are used to. Iron and a gold ore began dropping as an ore block, rather than as a valuable block as before. Coal and diamond ores drop regular coal and diamond respectively. Notch also introduced item crafting. Pressing the B key opened a special menu, as if a workbench. Unfortunately, it didn't function yet, but you could place items in it. In the same version appeared gears. As you know, they were supposed to be a kind of redstone. It's impossible to get them without editing the inventory, and in general they were just spinning. They had no functionality. In the next version, Rana was removed. To replace this mob were added Steve and Black Steve. They had no animations. They just moved in different direction as if frozen. They each had 10 hearts of life and didn't drop anything when they died. In the same version, there is a finally full-fledged crafting system appeared. Because of this, the chests in the starter house were empty. There was still no workbench, and creating items was done through a separate crafting window. There weren't that many recipes, torch, all possible tools and game blocks. While all the recipes were the same as they are now, the game blocks were not. Now it takes 10 units of material to craft. Back then it only took 4. You may have noticed that the stick appeared. Before that it wasn't in the game. That's why Notch decided that it's worth adding such an item, because it is used in every existing item creation recipe. If we have the ability to create tools from metals, then how do we smell them? The answer is obvious: with the help of fire or lava. Every player showed up with the flint and steel in their inventory. Therefore, as soon as the ore was mined, it had to be simply thrown into the fire. This applied to coal, iron, gold and even diamond ore. 1 to 3 units drop from one block. In the next version finally appeared a workbench. The creation recipe is the same, 4 planks in crafting grid. Because of this, a 2x2 crafting grid appeared in the inventory instead of a player characteristics. You could create your own workbench there. 12 new recipes were added in this version. Let's face it, all of them migrated to the game and are unchanged to these days. Of the new features appeared gold tools, gunpowder, strings, strings, feathers, and mushroom soup. At the time, it restored as much as 4 hearts of life. A new mob appeared, Beast Boy. He also had no animations and moved aimlessly around the map. The number of lives was the same 10 hearts, but after death he left up to 2 units of feathers. Black Steve started dropping gunpowder and regular Steve started dropping strings. The last version of the first part of the update was very drastic. Notch removed all existing mobs from the game and instead brought back the familiar human mob. After death he could drop strings, feathers or gunpowder. Finally, the main menu appeared in the game. Now, after starting the game, the player would get here. There you could see the very authentic logo made of stone. For the first time there was a splash, it was only one pre-beta. All in all, the first part of the development came to an end. It's very hard to say what still happened. Why Notch decided to remove the new character models and bring back the old ones? Before the development of the second part, Notch wrote in his blog that Doug is great guy, but he is no longer involved in the development of Minecraft. The text didn't say anything bad. Notch said that it was hard for him to move in development while waiting for Doug, because he couldn't adjust to Marcus' development's rhythm. Moreover, they had problems with adding animation to the characters, so Marcus decided to move on his own. The second phase of development started very briskly. Notch added farming. By creating a new tool, the hoe, the player could plow the land. Sometimes a wheat seed could be dropped while plowing. The seed could be planted in the plowed land and wheat could grow from it. 6 units of wheat could make a bread. Yes, that was the recipe at that time. Slowly Notch started adding new splash tags to the game, and now there were as many as 36 of them. After a few versions, the day and night cycle appeared in the game. It lasted only 15 minutes in total. 7.5 minutes was the day and 7.5 minutes was the night. The spawning of some mobs began to depend on the day and night cycle. In the next version, the cycle was increased to 20 minutes. Day and night still lasted equally. At night, stars began to appear in the sky, but armor was added. Nothing special, but the chainmail was made of fire blocks, which could not be obtained. But leather armor was made of sheep wool. The armor unfortunately had no functionality, it was just a regular placeholder, but when the player taking damage, the armor loses durability. A little later, skeletons and zombies began to burn in sunlight, and spiders in the daytime without provocation from the player did not attack. The starting house was redesigned. Now stone and wooden planks were used instead of mossy cobblestone. Already in the next version, armor began to fully protect the player. In the slots for armor could not be placed anything but armor. There were even beautiful icons that indicated the element of protection of the player. In addition, to look at yourself in the armor, Notch added the ability to switch the camera. It was possible to look at yourself in the third-person mode. The Ultimate version pleased all players with the introduction of a furnace. It was possible to smelt blocks and items in it. The crafting recipe was the same as it is now. For the first time, meat appeared. After killing a pig, raw pork was dropped from it and could be cooked in the furnace. It restored 4 hearts of life. Flint began dropping from gravel with a 10% chance. It was used in the recipe to create a flint and steel. Creepers started to drop sulfur after death. That's what gunpowder was called at the time. Skeletons began to drop arrows, spiders strings, and zombies, of course, feathers. Yeah, why not? The last version that completed the development phase of InDev was released on February 23rd, 2010. It wasn't very big. Finally, wood dropped from the trees instead of planks. The recipe for creating bread had changed, now you need 3 units of wheat instead of 6. But most importantly, due to the fact that Notch met his love Ellen Zatterstrand, whose brother was an artist, the paintings appeared in the game. There were 19 in total, and you could create them using 8 planks and light grey wool. That's how long ago the paintings appeared. By the way, the last year Christopher Zatterstrand gave us 15 more new paintings. Toward the end of the development, the game got a full-fledged survival mode, item crafting, and as many as 67 crafting recipes, as well as tons of new splashes. Notch added them in almost every version. I just didn't bother to tell you about it. I really like the way this phase of development has been completed. It's intense, and it's where the vector of the game's development was set, which will be followed by all the developers of Minecraft. Ahead of us is the InDev version. Yes, the names are similar, but these are different stages of development. While you waiting for the new video, you can watch these, they are also very interesting. Subscribe to this channel, leave a like and click on the bell. We'll hear from you again as we discovered Minecraft in a new way.